With me is Tahra Ahmed, a spokesperson for the Reset. Welcome to Going Underground, Tahra. What is the Reset?
The Reset is an organisation made up of people that have come together who've been absolutely disgusted with all the corruption that's been going on in our banking, with our politicians, in the judiciary. And we've found that there's actually amazing powers that we have where we can totally turn all of this around. We can abolish taxes because we know that they are actually unlawful. This has been found out by a group of researchers.
Which taxes are unlawful?
Income taxes. We are only supposed to be taxed if and when we're being attacked. And are we being attacked?
So what, do you like the Tea Party? Or is this a legal...
This is a lawful right, or lawful, it's in our constitution that dictates...
Is that Magna Carta?
The Magna Carta that dictates that we are free sovereign beings and our money that we earn is our own money. But in an emergency, if there's a war, we're being attacked, we're being invaded, then the government is allowed to tax us, to raise money, to raise funds for armaments, for armies, etc.
Now, before we sound like the version of the Tea Party in the United States, let's explain how the mechanism itself. So if we abolish all income tax, where do we get the money from?
We've got about 360 odd taxes, by the way. We've got the income tax on 25%, then the national insurance contributions on top 9%, and obviously if you're a 45% tax bracket, that's even more. We've got council tax. Fuel tax, I believe, is about 80%. Every single time that you buy an item of clothing or furniture, go to a restaurant, anything, you pay 20% on top as well.
So you're calculating a total of nearly 70% that we have to go through.
Strictly, the exact figure is 66.7% of our earnings, or the average person's earnings, goes towards taxes. So we're saying abolish that, replace it with a 1% transaction fee.
And you've done the calculation and just that 1%, I mean, that's because the Glass-Steagall Act, I suppose, is a much smaller amount, or the Vickers report, those kinds of figures. Just a 1% tax will raise...
Well, it will raise 3 times the amount that we have actually over 300 taxes. All of our 300 taxes last year raised nearly £470 billion. If we applied this 1% transaction tax to all the transactions that went through, and this just the 2 banking systems, BACS and CHAPS, and there's lots of other transaction systems like PayPal and lots of other systems.
Which are in addition to that.
Which are in addition.
Because people will know what BACS and CHAPS are, types of bank transfer payments.
Yeah, so these are transfer payments that when you're buying or doing any transaction, selling, doing any business in this country, your money passes through these systems. If we added just 1% levy on those figures, and these figures are available, they're not hidden or anything, they're supplied by the banking system, just 1% on those transactions would have given us, the people, or the Treasury, over £1.5 trillion. So we're looking at nearly £2 trillion extra that will be coming into the Treasury that will be our money.
Now, you alluded to it earlier, something that's that dramatic for it not to be on the public agenda and for it not to have been on the public agenda for so long, let alone during the time of the economic crisis, due to the revolving door between the companies this tax would hit and politicians?
Absolutely. I mean, we know that the corporations, they are the people who are the big lobbies, who pay the politicians' money, who bribe them. They give them maybe a couple of £1 million each. Maybe there's a dozen, maybe there's 2 dozen, maybe there's more in our parliament system who are in the control, in the pocket of these corporations. And that's why they pass these awful laws with these loopholes where companies come to this country, corporations, billion-dollar, trillion-dollar companies come to this country. They do business, Starbucks, Google, eBay, McDonald's, Coca-Cola, all these companies, and they don't pay a single penny.
Okay, but so presumably, quite apart from the revolving door, those big companies you just mentioned will be telling the politicians, we'll leave. Isn't that the constant trope? Your BACS CHAPS transaction is slightly different because it's at source.
Yes, absolutely. It's completely at source. So there's no way of them doing their creative accounting where they also have these big accounting companies who create these ways of bypassing our tax system. They can't do that. It's at source.
Well, the big five accounting companies are embedded within the government of both Labour, Conservative, the coalition. How could one ever get this policy into in practice?
Well, this is the amazing thing, the other thing that we've discovered. We actually have a power to call, the people have the power to actually call for a referendum. All these years, we've been begging the government to give us a referendum on the EU. We've been begging the government on giving us a referendum when we didn't want to go to war in Iraq. And I was part of those, some say millions, some say 3 million people that went to say that no war with Iraq. We're constantly being promised that yes, you'll get the referendum when we come in power, and then the referendum never comes. We don't have to go to them. We don't have to beg them. We can go to our local parishes. Again, this is in our constitution. This is a structure that has existed for nearly 800 years. It'll be 800 years next year when it's the 800-year anniversary of Magna Carta, where we can go as a people, as united on a single issue, call for a referendum and say we don't want a particular thing. And the amazing thing is that we have a historical precedent. We have done this in this country 45 times. Okay, 45 times the United Kingdom, or and other times it was known as England, has come together on a single issue. Normally when it's happened, it's been a confirmation of the Constitution, but the big ones were the Bill of Rights, there's the Petition of Rights.
Let's go on to the fact that actually you're being quite conservative in the sense, because you're talking about the Chaps and Backs bank transfer payment levy. You call it the total economic activity levy. You also mention in these in the work of Reset Crest. This is only the beginning. There are tiny little taxes you could take off other transaction taxes, which again seem minimal, whilst abolishing all taxes on all of us.
Yeah, I mean, we're shifting the tax burden from the 99% to actually, it's not even, it's more than 99%, to the corporations, they,
to the sort of 0.01%.
Yeah, and who make the most money, who make the money from really enslaving other people in foreign lands with cheap labour, with their monopolies, and then they come and they charge extortionate amounts to us anyway. And then we will have that enormous financial freedom from when these tax burdens are lifted from us, and we will reap abundance. That money will enable us to give to each constituency around £200 million for the local community to then decide what they want to do with that money. And it will give each man, woman and child £7,500 living wage. We're not asking for anything new. We're just resetting the Constitution to how it should be and reasserting our rights and our freedoms and our powers to what is already there in our Constitution.
We'll certainly be following the campaign on going underground. Thank you, Tahra Ahmed.
Thank you.